Hi, Dale Little here in Cesterndia, Romania. Uh, you see behind me the what's called the Fortified Church of Cesterndia. I want to talk just a few minutes about some things I've been seeing on the on YouTube and other social media lately. And 1 Samuel 15, 22 and 23, Samuel's giving God's word to Saul about disobeying God. And it talks about there that obedience is better than sacrifice in verse 22. And it goes into verse 23. And although Samuel is talking to Saul, he's already pretty much chastised Saul for what he did, but now he's explaining why, because of these principles. So this doesn't just apply to Saul. It's a biblical principle that applies to all of us. And the next statement in verse 23 says that rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. And I'm seeing some of that, and some of God's people, I think. You need to be careful. You need to be careful that you don't have that's what's called the sin of rebellion. Now, these are, to me, fairly frivolous matters. Now, I want to make sure, first of all, to say that all of us vent once in a while. I think we have the need to. I'm not talking about just, on a rare occasion venting over something, a pet peeve or something that we have, because we all have those. But sometimes we become obsessed with some of these things, and that may indicate that, you have a spirit of rebellion you need to get rid of. And I'm not here to say who has and who hasn't. How far do you have to go to have that spirit? But the Spirit of God's going to have to tell you. But if you go too far, and if it's an obsession with you, then you've got a problem. And what prompts this is a couple of things. Now, I need to say up front, before I even get into that, is that I don't have any stock in Walmart. I'm not here to defend Walmart. I have stock in this country. I have stock as a Christian. And what I see is people it's really a vendetta against Walmart. And I think as Christian people, we need to be careful about some of this stuff. Let me explain. One is and this goes back some, and I've spoken on it before. One goes back to these self-checkouts. Well, if you don't like self-checkouts, that's, don't use self-checkouts. Don't go on a vendetta against Walmart and try to convince everybody else, to turn against this fact. I happen to like self-checkout. If you don't, that's fine. If I like them, if they're convenience to me, and I want to use them, then you shouldn't have a problem with that. It speeds the process up of getting out quicker, because, well, just to put it plainly, people like you don't like them, so there's not that big of a line in them. So it's a convenience to us that do. The other thing that I'm seeing more recently, though, is showing the receipt. Oh man, I've seen, some things on YouTube and other places about having to show a receipt before you go out the door. And their argument is, well, that's your property. You paid for it at the cashier's. Well, that's true. But you're still on their property. And you have pretty much conduct business according to their rules, or you can go somewhere else. If they want to check to make sure that what you have is your property and that you did pay for what you have in your cart, then I don't see why you should have an issue with that. Yeah, it takes a few seconds. Now, it's not a principle, godly principle either way that, whether a person should be required to show a receipt. But at the store, and here's the most ridiculous part of it, is that Some people are saying, well, that's leading up to socialism. No, what you're proposing is leading up to socialism. If there be no, you should be able to go into a place of business, and the government should require them to, uh, you know, uh, operate exactly like the government tells them, or they can't operate, and they can't do anything to do things that they feel appropriate to kind of cut the theft and stuff that goes on there. And it does. And I'd say that a lot of those that are objecting to showing a receipt are those that are probably going out with things that they didn't pay for. That doesn't mean everybody is. But there again, here comes the principle. That's an indication of a rebellious spirit, because that's what I see in a lot of the comments that I see in some of these videos, is that it just irks them that they should be required to go into a place of business, and that they show the receipt to show that they own that property when they come out, that they did pay for what's in their cart. We know how much shoplifting goes on, or well, probably a lot of us don't. We probably don't have any clue to how much stores lose through shoplifting and things like that. But here's the principle. It has nothing to do necessarily with shoplifting per se. Satan rebelled against God. You read in Revelations, and you can read a little bit in the book of Daniel and other places, but you read in the book of Revelations how when John saw a picture of God's throne, he saw this wonderful, magnificent throne, and its description that he gave, something beyond our imagination. And he's got these 4 living creatures there at worship day and night. It says it's unceasing, telling how worthy the Lamb is, and praising, Jesus Christ, and praising God the Father. And that praise goes on. And then you had the 4 and 20 elders sitting around it. And, Satan was right there. Some people say that Satan was probably next to God, probably the chief angel in heaven. And he's seeing all this. And Moses faced the criticisms as he led the children of Israel out of Egypt. There's Korah and some others decided they could get together and, who's Moses? Who put Moses in charge? Why should he be in control of everything? And so we have Satan seeing all this praise and stuff going to the Creator, the one that created him. And then he said, well, why should God get all this praise? And so he began to stir up and rebel, and he began to stir up some of the other angels, and telling them, why should we be giving all this praise to God, to Jehovah God, and who's he, that he's better than the rest of us? And so we see in that rebellion is as a sin of witchcraft. And we see the rebellion of Satan. We saw the rebellion in Korah and others as Moses led the children of Israel out. And we saw how God dealt with them. And so here's the same rebellious spirit that we rebel about being required to do anything. When you go into a place of business, if you don't like the way they do business and you don't like the rules that they set, there are plenty of businesses that sell the same items elsewhere. And that's what I suggest you do, rather than just letting this eat at you all the time. And first of all, you need to get rid of that spirit of rebellion that you have. And because if it's eating at you and just consumes you, so to speak, then I'd say you've got a spirit of rebellion you need to take care of. And so I'm not here, like I say, to do anything for Walmart. I could care less about Walmart, really. Do shop there when I'm in the States. We don't have them here, but we've got businesses over here. They're even more strict. than what Walmart is here in Romania. Security everywhere, and they are all in uniform. Well, I say all of them. I don't know, maybe some not in uniform, but very conspicuous to let you know that you better not walk out without, with something that doesn't belong to you. And they're going to require you show a receipt. So Walmart's not by themselves. I suggest with looking around, and I'm talking mostly to people who call themselves Christians, consider themselves children of God. We're in great trouble in the United States, and this is a very critical time in our history. There's more important things than going on a vendetta against Walmart, and also maybe consider that person that's asking you to show a receipt. They're just an employee. They're there to make a living. They've got a job, and you're going to lambast them and give them a hard time just because that's their job. And there's nothing wrong with that job. If you're thinking, well, they need to get another job, they need to refuse to do that job. No, there's nothing wrong with that job. As long as you are on the property of Walmart or any other store for that matter, and if they have their own personal parking lot, if it's a standalone store, then as long as you're in the parking lot, you're on their property. And so, if they request to see something, now, it might put a stress to get out in the parking lot. I would probably have a little bit of question about that, but yet, in one sense, I see they're right. You're still on their property. And if they suspect you may have walked out with something that don't belong to you, in a sense, they should be able to request a receipt to show that. But primarily, we're talking about there at the store. You haven't walked out the store yet. That's where they ask for the receipt. You're on their property. You should be able to operate. You should be operating under their rules that they lay out. And if you don't like it, then you should go somewhere else. That'd be my advice. My concern is about you as a Christian, because if you've got a spirit of rebellion, you're the ones that's going to have to pay the price. So I'm not concerned about Walmart. I'm concerned about you as a child of God. I'm not here to complain and to fuss about you, your attitude or anything else. I'm here to try to help you, and I hope you'll take heed if you have that. And like I say, I want to just remind you again, yeah, we all vent once in a while. I'm not talking about the occasion where you had a bad day, you had a bad experience, and you vent a little bit. But if that's something that you have this ongoing vendetta, whether it's Walmart or somewhere else, if it's not something that's absolutely illegal, or something that's terribly bad, then I'd say this is real frivolous. With people going to hell every day around us, and we're going to consume our time with something like that, there's something wrong. And with our country about to, on the verge of falling apart, it's close. We've got people that are ready to do some things that's unbelievable to Christian people. And to worry about showing a receipt at Walmart, like I say, is really frivolous. Okay, if you want to put it that as such, I've done my vent occasionally, but I'm really not venting. I'm really concerned about what I see. I'm really concerned about this spirit of rebellion that I see, and just make sure that you don't have that spirit of rebellion. Let God search your heart. That's the best thing to do. Del Little, Justin Nadia, Romania.